Well, thank you all. Thank you for joining me here this morning. Dr. Lai, thank you for that tremendous introduction. It is great to be with you all. And I want to thank, first, President Tsai Ing-wen for her government's gracious hospitality during my time here, and also acknowledge her steadfast leadership. She continues to be the leader that is crucial at this important moment in history. I want to thank, too, the incredible welcome I've received from the Taiwanese people who have created this amazing miracle of an island, this democracy. And I want to thank another group. I want to thank the handful of protesters at my hotel yesterday, too. More seriously, they remind us that democracies are rambunctious, that ideas can be exchanged, and it reminded me of home. So it was great to see. You know, I've spoken about Taiwan a great deal in the past, especially during the 1,000 days that I had as America's 70th Secretary of State. And yet this is the first time I've had the privilege of visiting your great and free nation. I am thrilled to be here and to experience your distinct, unmistakably free culture and society. Now, I know some of you have been asked, I look a little bit thinner than when you've seen me on TV. Don't think for a second that's going to stop me from enjoying all the great Taiwanese food. I've been recommended the noodle soup and the pineapple cakes. Last year, your ambassador in the U.S. dropped off some dried pineapple from here, from Taiwan. It was a big hit at the Pompeo House. And everyone's asked me how I lose the weight. I can't tell you all the secrets, but know that I enjoyed Taiwanese fruit and Australian wine along the way. Your country is beautiful. It is rich in history and deep traditions. There's so many things I could speak about today. I'm sure we'll have a chance in the course of our conversation when you get a chance to ask some questions. But I want to start highlighting some of the things that we in America view as the most significant, the most impressive achievements of Taiwan. First, I've mentioned your devotion to liberty here, combined with the unmatched work ethic of the Taiwanese people, produce national accomplishments which are remarkable for a nation of 23 million. Your free economy is among the most prosperous in the world. Indeed, you grew even in the face of this virus. You're one of the few countries that experienced that continued economic growth during these last 5 years. In fact, last year you experienced the strongest economic growth in a decade. You should be incredibly proud of that. It did not happen by accident. It happened because of the hard work of the people here. You know, even more impressive has been the character of innovation in your economy, spurred on by your free market system. The companies here in Taiwan are the envy of the world. I don't think I'm exaggerating to say that practically every electronic device in the room today, many of you have it in your pocket on silent, I hope, was made by Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company. Foxconn makes phones for the world and laptops for the world, and crucial parts for electronics flow from this place to the world that have created so much innovation, so much prosperity, and so much productivity. I could go on, the list does. It's all because of the simple fact that your economy here in Taiwan is one of the most elegantly free in the world, and now one of the most important economies in the world. The United States and Taiwan's economies should grow closer and closer and closer. You know, sometimes I think people here take for granted your existence as a free nation enables economic achievements all around the world. In light of this, it's worth considering the importance of upholding and defending sovereignty of free people, something Dr. Lai spoke about. We know that standing for freedom together is a necessity wherever liberty is threatened. When we lose sight of how important that is, there are real consequences, human consequences. All of us can recite the history from World War II. After the annexation of Austria, Hitler didn't stop there. He wanted the Sudetenland, and after that, he wanted the Polish corridor. He was banking that nobody would stop him, that would value their own peace and security more than the freedom of others, that nobody would stand for freedom until it was too late and he would have accomplished his horrific objectives. We sit in this room today as pictures from Ukraine flood our TV sets. We've seen this in the recent days. Vladimir Putin, a dictator, with absolutely no regard for freedom, decided he would invade Ukraine and begin redrawing the borders of Russia by force, taking land and life from his neighbors. The Ukrainian people have made clear for many, many years they do not want to live under Russia's thumb, and they will fight, they will bloody their invaders, but unless European nations oppose Russia with great resolve and that the West unites, there is risk that this light of freedom will be at risk. We can't let it be snuffed out there. It is not possible. It is not morally right. Make no mistake, Vladimir Putin won't stop in Ukraine. He's told us as much. He won't stop until he's reestablished what he views as the rightful imperial legacy of his regime, Greater Russia. We saw this during our time as well when North Korea threatened the world. They too will continue to provoke, to draw attention, and achieve their objectives through use of force. We can't appease. It creates too much risk. We can't concede liberty. It poses too much of a challenge. Security in exchange for the loss of life is simply not acceptable. With respect to North Korea, we brokered a deal with Chairman Kim. It was imperfect, but it was a deal that we did without appeasing to the regime and creating risk to our allies, created no risk to our allies as well. I hope that this central understanding will continue. Most importantly for our discussion today, how is it that we, collectively, freedom-loving peoples, will challenge the aggression of the People's Republic of China? You know, when the United States engaged 50 years ago with China, President Nixon hoped that free trade and free exchange of ideas would cause the communist dictatorship to be freer and more open. Part of that strategy was based upon the Cold War necessity of defeating a common enemy, the then Soviet Union. This approach imagined a future that hasn't rolled that way. It didn't develop as they had hoped. Reflecting on his opening to China, President Nixon said that America's engagement policy with that communist dictatorship, quote, may have been something that, quote, created a Frankenstein, end of quote. Yet, despite President Nixon's honest and accurate acknowledgement of the failure of a long-term American policy, the policy of engagement, few in Washington proved willing to challenge the threat from the Chinese Communist Party and to reverse direction. I was blessed. I worked for President Trump, who allowed me to reverse that course, to for the first time honestly and transparently challenge the central underpinnings of how the West and democracy can succeed. We made the world a little less naive about engagement with the Chinese Communist Party, an engagement which ultimately cannot lead Chairman Xi Jinping to change his ways. We've learned this painfully, especially you, the Taiwanese people, who've seen it firsthand over the past few decades. You've watched China not become freer as it became richer. We began the administration by talking about the broken trade deals, the unfair trade between the West and China, but we soon realized the problems were far more extensive. Consider the current moment that we all face. We should not forget that just this past week, China broke another promise. We all know the promise they broke in Hong Kong. In the China-Ukraine Strategic Partnership, a document signed by the Chinese Communist Party, each promised, quote, to offer support to each other on issues concerning national sovereignty and territorial integrity, end of quote. Another promise broken, this one to the freedom-loving people of Ukraine. The long list of the CCP's malign activity reflects China's Communist Party's vision. We should take them at their word. We should take Xi Jinping at his word for his global intention, for hegemonic dominance around the world. I know for me and for you, the dark future of a world under a communist dictatorship is unacceptable, and we should not empower it by letting them have economic strength to create the next generation of technologies. This is how we can challenge Xi Jinping's objective. It's why I've repeatedly said, and much of the world is now in agreement, that the danger posed by the CCP is the central threat of our time. Our time. America's time. Taiwan's time. As a Secretary of State, I led the effort of the State Department to confront our flawed relationship with the PRC. We tried to do it with candor and reciprocity, with principled realism, accepting things as they are, not as we wished them to be. We renegotiated trade deals. We rallied our allies to confront the CCP. We closed their embassy in Houston, Texas, when they were spying on America. And we recognized the atrocities that were being committed against more than 1 million people in the western part of their country in Xinjiang. We called it what it was. We didn't live in a fantasy world. We called it genocide and crimes against humanity, crimes that are going on to this day. We sanctioned CCP officials across the board for engaging in violation of human rights. We took seriously our obligation to lead the world in this way. And beyond the State Department, inside the United States, we strengthened our military, and we strengthened ties with nations around the region, with Australia, with Japan, with South Korea, and with Taiwan, to make sure that it was a collective effort to confront the challenge, the military challenges that the Chinese Communist poses to the world. We, outside of the State Department, also put investments, economic investments all across the world, and began the important process of decreasing our dependence on the Chinese Communist Party. This work to disconnect the United States from its deep dependence on important national security matters was important, because our dependency, as you can see with German dependency on Russian oil, poses a risk not only to the nation that is dependent, but on its friends and allies and partners, and indeed to the entire world. You here in Taiwan, you've been awake to this threat, frankly, since the beginning, longer than we have. You're so much closer. The world drew inspiration from Taiwanese people's profound and realistic distrust of the Chinese Communist Party. That's why I keep saying, when it comes to dealing with the CCP, we coined a slight change from President Reagan's admonition. With respect to the CCP, it must be distrust and verify. I found no bigger echo to that sentiment than right here in Taiwan. Indeed, the CCP's intention, its drive, its speaking about control of this place, to impose its dominance here by force if necessary, is horrific. Understanding the reasons helps us be confident that we can confront this threat with clear eyes. First, the CCP leadership views taking over Taiwan as its ultimate fulfillment of a decades-long communist ideological commitment. From Mao to Deng to Xi Jinping, the inability to fulfill this commitment has been a major stain on the CCP's domestic reputation. Under Xi, the CCP's ideological hubris has reached new heights. Thus, taking over Taiwan, a necessary mission, is not only to boost Xi's egomaniac claim of greatness, but indeed to solidify it. It is clear to me, and I think clear to many of us now, that the PRC believes that it is stronger than the West, that America is in decline. We saw this when Yang Jiechi gave an arrogant tirade against the United States in Anchorage during their very first meeting with the Biden administration. This arrogance, this belief that the West is weak, makes Xi dangerous. The very belief that the PRC could prevail in a confrontation, diplomatic, economic, military confrontation, puts our allies and friends at risk and makes the conflict that much greater. And because America is the most decisive backer of Taiwan's freedom, taking over Taiwan would change the global balance of power in the most fundamental ways, decidedly in the CCP's favor. Second, China's saber-rattling against Taiwan comes from fear and paranoia. As I said, Taiwan is a living example of the success of freedom and democracy of the Chinese people. So long as this example exists, it severely undermines the credibility and authority of the CCP, especially with the Chinese people who are under their thumb. One of the singular, most momentous events in my tenure as Secretary of State was to witness the painful death of Hong Kong's freedom and autonomy. Their brutally successful takeover of Hong Kong last year boosted Xi's hubris. It made him feel more powerful. I am convinced he won't be satisfied stopping at Hong Kong. He talks about Taiwan as an integral part of the one country, two systems scheme championed by his nation. Making good on those ambitions is central to Xi, making his power and maintaining his grip on the Chinese people. I mentioned the consequences we face in not standing up. The same is true here. After Hong Kong, Xi will desire to grow ever more. After Taiwan, he'll want the South China Sea, then the Senkakus, and so on, as he expands his hegemonic efforts. If we don't confront authoritarians who have no regard for freedom and independence, then they will draw us into conflict. And that conflict is one that will be far greater than it would have been were we to act sooner. It is for these reasons that the United States-Taiwan relationship is central to me. It is on my heart. It is fundamental to confronting China and promoting prosperity here and in America and around the world. And this is something I saw, Secretary of State, and it's something that must become an essential part of our nation's foreign policy, now and in the future, and it must be bipartisan. For 4 years, we eliminated all barriers to U.S. diplomats meeting with their Taiwan counterparts, as Dr. Lai spoke about. It was common sense, it was a fact, it was simple, it was morally right. This made it easy for me. We enacted policies which encouraged greater science and technological exchange between our two nations. It was right, it was moral, it was decent. This made it easy for us. We sold over $20 billion worth of arms to Taiwan, which made Taiwan safer and further cemented our important relationship. This was right, it was decent, it was moral. This made it easy for us. That's something that I am so happy to see, that even after our administration has departed, the Biden administration has continued down this path. This is good for Taiwan, it is good for America, it is good for the world. And we've too fought hard on the international stage for Taiwan, advocating for its admission into the World Health Organization. The United States must support Taiwan for the same reason that Americans defended West Berlin when I was a young soldier during the Cold War. We knew then if Germany fell, that if freedom fell, that freedom in the world risked dying. I know the stakes here. I know the stakes. Having commanded a tank platoon in West Germany during those final years of the Soviet Union, I knew our mission was tough. I knew our mission to patrol that border was risky. Much like West Germany then, Taiwan today is a shining example of democracy and freedom. Today I come here as a private citizen, but it is an imperative to change 50 years of ambiguity. It's about America's diplomatic recognition of the Republic of China and Taiwan, while the United States should continue to engage the People's Republic of China as a sovereign government. America's diplomatic recognition of the 23 million freedom-loving Taiwanese people and its legal, democratically elected government can no longer be ignored, avoided, or treated as secondary. It is my view that the United States government should immediately take necessary and long overdue steps to do the right and obvious thing, that is to offer the Republic of China Taiwan America's diplomatic recognition as a free and sovereign country. This isn't about Taiwan's future independence, for goodness sake. It's about recognition of an unmistakable, already existing reality. It's the reality. It's the fact. It's the reality is that many of your past and present leaders have made clear there is no need for Taiwan to declare independence because it's already an independent nation. Its name is the Republic of China Taiwan. The people and government of the United States should simply accept this fundamentally decent, morally right thing. This is easy. The Taiwanese people deserve the world's respect for continuing down this free, democratic, and sovereign path. You are the most vibrant democracy in all of Asia and are at the forefront of today's fight between freedom and tyranny. We should support that. I believe that Taiwan must have America's support if freedom and democracy still have a chance to thrive, and I am counting on it, and I believe it will. This is as important for the Taiwanese people as it is for the American people. I said before, American support for Taiwan is bipartisan. Taiwan is a crucial partner in defense, and most importantly, in establishing deterrence. It is situated right in the middle of our defensive parameters. From Japan to Korea to the Philippines and the South China Sea, losing Taiwan would directly imperil our vital national interests in the United States. The good news is America is now awake to the threat that China poses, not just to the United States, but to the entire world. The intellectual and strategic traditions which have guided you are now invaluable to all the world. Taiwan has the most sophisticated understanding, richest experiences, and most efficient toolkits to deal with that old foe, the CCP. The rest of this world, for this reason, can learn many things from the Taiwanese people. It is today's global awakening to this CCP threat that has made Taiwan such a proven force for good in the world. Indeed, an inspiration to many people in mainland China as well. If democracy is to come to China one day, which we all pray for, our best and most efficient partner will undoubtedly be the Republic of China, Taiwan. I have one final thought before I take questions. You should know how deeply I believe that the futures of Taiwan and the United States are intertwined. They're intertwined because we love freedom and because our interests, our security, diplomatic, and economic interests are incredibly aligned. We're each committed to ensuring peaceful relations and stability in the Taiwan Straits and indeed throughout the Indo-Pacific region. And we've dedicated ourselves to this commitment. This was at the core of the Trump administration's approach to this crucial area of the world. We know that the security and integrity of Taiwan remains vital to that mission now and in the future. Taiwan and the United States are aligned according to our values and principles. We both fully embrace democracy and free markets. We believe in the inherent dignity of every individual and understand that government exists to serve the people, not the other way around. Today, you, Taiwan, show an unbelievably wonderful example and contribute enormously to the global economy with technology and public health that is the inspiration to so many of us. Whether in Taipei or back home in my hometown of Wichita, Kansas, the flourishing of Taiwan should be justly celebrated, as should the principles that we all share. We must continue to strengthen our relationship together and must continue to work to strengthen it. I know that you will do that. Thank you for being with me today. I look forward to our conversation, and may God bless every person here in this special place of Taiwan. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Pompeo, for your wonderful sharing. Please be seated. Thank you.